Hey everybody, welcome to Paradigm Shift, Embracing Creativity. My name is Stefan Baumann and I'm your host. Today we will actually be interviewing John Lavenia. He is the creator of JLS Success Mastermind, which is a group that I'm a part of. And he's also an author. He does a lot of different things. I'll let him tell a bit more about himself when he comes on. But just real quick, wanted to remind everyone, please like, share, comment, do anything you can to help us grow the show. This will help us to get the broadcast out to more people. It's greatly appreciated. And also during the show, if you have any questions, feel free to comment. It's interactive, so we will talk back. As far as our show sponsor goes, it is EC Media Group, LLC. And they have a event coming up pretty soon called The Real Pitch. It's basically a program that allows local emerging video professionals to showcase their work to local executives for a chance to land a paid contract for producing for local business. Gives them access to high-profile clients that they normally wouldn't have. So if you could keep an eye out for that, we'll be posting more info on that as we go along. As far as today is concerned, what's going on in the news? Well, for one, they are talking about vaccine mandates for healthcare workers, which is very controversial because the fact that even though the vaccine seems to be working, it's still considered to be experimental. So we have a quick little video clip explaining what's going on.
2 days ago to Mayor Bill de Blasio of New York City, who's putting in a citywide rule that if you work in a hospital, you have to be vaccinated. Your hospital taking that same step in Newark, New Jersey. Explain the decision.
Well, thanks so much for having me. I think it's a very wise move. I made the decision because I just simply could not abide by the risk of my staff spreading it to each other, but certainly also spreading it to the most vulnerable folks in the community to COVID-19, our patients.
So yeah, it's as somebody who worked in healthcare for a while, it's kind of a sticky subject because it gets into whole legal issues. But I mean, let us know what you think. If you have any thoughts on it, whether or not you think they should do the vaccines as a mandate or not, feel free to comment. This isn't a political show, but it's something to talk about. And on top of that, we also have the French astronaut was wishing good luck to the Olympians a few days ago, actually. So we'll actually let you watch that video clip.
400 kilometers away from Earth, we're very much looking forward to watching the Olympic Games in Tokyo. So good luck to all the athletes. All the best from space. We'll be watching.
I wish I could flip upside down like that. That would be kind of fun. So yes, good luck to all the Olympians, and games are already underway. And it's probably going to be a very unique situation because of all the restrictions, but I think it's, I'm glad they're doing it. Lastly, there's been a lot of flooding in China. Once again, I'll just have you bring up a video real quick.
The devastation in Zhengzhou is seen at its worst. Tens of thousands of people have been evacuated from the industrial hub in China's central Henan province. And dams and reservoirs have swelled to warning levels as rainfall levels shattered records. Dozens have died in the province over the last few days, a number of them in a flooded subway where the waters reached shoulder level, as seen in this eyewitness video from Tuesday.
Yeah, it's a shame. It seems like flooding, natural disasters are going on all over the place. So our hearts really go out to them over there and anywhere else anything like that is happening. But as for today's guest, John Lavenia, he is coming on, and he is an entrepreneur. Like I said, he's an author. He wrote the book, Integrity is Everything. Almost escaped my head there for a second. And he'll tell you a little bit more about how he came from New Jersey, from a hard knock background, and turned that into a successful life. So let's bring him on.
Well, I'm here. Good to see you, Stefan.
Oh, can't hear you.
Hopefully we could raise the vibration after hearing about world news. So yeah, good stuff.
I know. I probably should have put those in the other order. But end on the happy story.
Right.
So yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself. how did I met you by joining the mastermind group that my mom recommended last year. It's for e-commerce, and I haven't really done any e-commerce other than selling photos, but she kept on talking about it. She's like, you really need to check this group out. So I joined, and that's how we got introduced to each other. What exactly is the group for? Like, what do you do?
Well, it's actually not just an e-commerce group. We do have, in fact, right now or in a couple hours, we're having a workshop for people who are engaged in, e-commerce as one form of online business. But I've been pursuing personal growth philosophy and success psychology for 35 years now, just out of desperation because my life wasn't working. I had, as you mentioned, hard knocks, troubled youth, growing up on the streets of New Jersey and all the things that I got myself into. And I almost didn't make it to 16 years old. So again, out of necessity, I had to sort of take responsibility for my own evolution and start applying some principles into my life. And wouldn't you know it, not only did it get me out of the gutter, it also got me into a situation where other aspects of my life started to work, like business and money and relationships and health. And really the success is the total package. It all came down to the actual application of principles, which I did not originate, but that had been here longer than me. In fact, some of the stuff that we talk about in our mastermind group is timeless principles that are thousands of years old, which you could apply to e-commerce or whatever, apply them to life. There is no new truth or whatever. So what the mastermind group is about is the actual application of principles into various areas of life, including and especially business, because as entrepreneurs, we are responsible for our results. We don't get paid for punching a clock. Right. So if I can help people rehabilitate their own causation in all that and remember how powerful they are, that's what the group is all about.
Yeah. And there's a lot of like-minded people who are all talking about the same thing. So I find it's been really beneficial. But so thank you for that.
You're welcome. It's beneficial for me too. That's for me. You get to listen in, but that's my group. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like doing the show. I like doing it. I just want to do it. So
yeah.
So that's the Success Mastermind, but tell us a little bit about the book that you wrote.
Yeah, Integrity is Everything is a book that took 20 years for me to decide to write. And then once I did decide, it took a week. And so this was after having a lot of people ask me for my secrets, because a lot of times, people have assumptions that, you must have secrets or something that you're withholding. Because look, most people aren't getting the kind of results that they would truly like to be getting. And yet we've all been exposed to a lot of the same books and lectures and seminars. Now, personally, I've invested over $300,000 into my own education after leaving government schools and whatever they teach there. And it's been good, right? It bears a lot of fruit. I've made more than that. However, what I found was the same people asking me for my so-called secrets were the same people that were exposed to the same stuff that I had been studying, and to whatever degree that I could, actually applying into my life. Then there's the trick, right? Integrity, the state of being whole, undivided, and undiminished, as within, so without. So here's a book, or here's a doctrine or something. I just did something with it, perhaps to a higher degree and to a more consistent degree than most people who were still wondering, what's missing. So here's 200 pages. Now it's not a secret anymore. Go ahead and use this stuff in your life or not, right? Your choice, but it's not a secret.
And what was the catalyst? Like, you said you came from a hard background and you started applying principles. What was the very first thing that made you what was the first thing that you did to move in that direction?
To sort of get on the path of deliberate, principle-based living. Well, the first thing I had to do was, kind of pick myself up by my bootstraps and show up in communities of people who were more purposeful. And because of my background, that started with like 12-step fellowships, right? So here were people who were, getting off the street, drugs and drinking and what have you. And in fact, in that space, there is a doctrine. It's called the 12 steps, right? And it helps people to live, sober lives and to start to...
I went through it too, so I get it.
Right. And to start to implement principles, because it's not just about, the drink, right? That's one symptom of what I could call purposeless living, right? Or in that world, quite admittedly, monumental self-centeredness. Woe is me, and all that sort of self-deprecation and self-bludgeoning. And so just to get past the desperation of that was sort of an on-ramp into, oh, well, here's additional philosophy. Oh, here's the same truth showing up, in a book from 1,000 years ago, right? So again, there is no new truth, but there's new ways that I can apply them if I'm conscious of them and if I'm intentional, if I've got a way to apply this and see it actually work in my life. So I've become a student of life. I observe what works and what doesn't, and having read, well, there's one of my bookshelves, right? But having read countless, books, a lot of which was good, a lot of which probably didn't need to be published, but hey, everybody can have a voice, right? I just look at what works, and that was the on-ramp for it. Was here's something, here's a method that's working in the lives of people who may not be here today if not for exposure to that, those teachings.
And how long did you say it took to write the book?
A week.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome.
Well, yeah, 20 years to make the decision, and then a week to actually do it. Yeah, which is a whole lesson in itself.
Yeah, that's we were talking about that this afternoon. Actually, that's a really good point. Where do you get your energy from? Like, how do you do all the things that you do and not like pass out? Oh, well, it's the magic vitamins that I take, and I say that in jest because I do take some really awesome vitamins. But really it comes down to purpose. So behind all of that, whether or not you're eating your spinach, and please do eat your spinach, but the idea that I'm driven by something, a purpose that's bigger than just John Lavenio walking around in a body doing the planet Earth thing. Yes, right. So my purpose, in case you're interested, and this is something that I've determined for myself, is to expand prosperity and prosperity consciousness for as many people as I can touch in my time on this planet. Hence, the efforts and the directions that I've gone in, which are very purposeful to me. And it doesn't feel like work. What is work? Work is on purpose action, right? So if we boil it down to a simplicity, and I believe the height of mastery is simplicity, okay, I'm on purpose. And because I'm in action, I'm working, and it feels friggin' awesome. Right. So what do I do in my free time? I work, and I have other things too. Right. I ride my Harley. I like to shoot guns in the desert. I'm a father. Right. So I raise my daughter. But it's all on purpose. Do you find it difficult to keep balance with all of that together?
No, I don't. It's and others, as you kind of alluded to, might as onlookers might think, oh, wow, this person is, super high production and high speed. And yes, that's the case, but that doesn't mean that I'm frazzled or that it's drudgery or anything like that. I have seen for myself that I can be most creative. I know that this is a program about creativity, right? Mm-hmm. I can do that when I've got free energy and free attention, because you only get so much attention, right? And that I can put that deliberately in places that are purposeful and not squander it on the millions of distractions that will impinge on us, that are impinging on people every single day, right? Your inbox is everyone else's agenda for you that day, right? Every time social media goes bing bong, right? That's impinging, right? So if we can just keep the main thing. I'm sorry, what was that?
They said you get like a tang of anxiety from it.
Well, you could. I don't, but you could, right? I just turn all that crap off, right? And then, so like right now, we're here together, and I know that we needed to be here together because it was on my calendar. So that's a purposeful thing for me to do, is to include others in this conversation of success, and thus I showed up, right? So, but there's lots of things that we got to say no to as well. It really comes down to purpose.
So my mom just actually tuned in. She wanted to know how you wrote the book in 1 week, like just the actual process of going through it.
Oh, well, excuse me. Once I actually made the decision, which took a long time, and that's something we can certainly talk about more. But once I made the decision, that's it. I decided I'm going to extricate myself from my routine. I like my routine. My routine's nice. My routine makes me money and keeps me healthy and all that. But I'm going to go rent a cabin near Sedona. I live in Arizona. Okay. So I'm going to go up to a place where I pretty much don't know anyone. There's a nice creek. There's some red rocks to look at. I grabbed a guitar and a voice recorder and a few other books for inspiration. And I showed up and I just spit it out in a week. And then I left and I came back to civilization. And then it took me like a year to like lay it out and edit it into different, chapters, because it was just like a paragraph here, an idea there, half a chapter here. So just however it came out. The point was to overcome my own inertia to do that. All the indecision and all the inertia, an object at rest tends to stay at rest. Well, I was that object for a long time. So once I made the decision, okay, I'm cutting myself off now from any other possible outcome. I shall be the author of this book, which had been trying to come out of me for so long, right? And when the pain of not doing it was greater than the pain of just doing it, I did it, right? And I spit it out, and then I, wound up arranging it into chapters, which, by the way, I didn't have an editor or anything, so I did the whole thing. Every word of that book was exactly the way it came out of my brain. And so, yeah, it got done, and now thousands of people read it, and they're like, oh, holy crap, this is amazing, 5-star reviews on Amazon. Thank you. By the way, I've never even marketed the book. It's just, kind of like people found out about it and started sharing it and whatever, right? So
what was your biggest hesitation in writing it? Like, why were you so afraid?
Well, it was more about I do what I know works, and I didn't know that I would have success with that book. Whereas my routine, my normal efforts that I do, I've been in the sales and marketing space a long time, and I'm really, really freaking good at it, right? So that bears fruit, right? That's kind of like, yeah, if John, if John's doing the things that he does, working with customers and all that, that will bear fruit, right? The book. Now, in hindsight, I could tell you it's the best thing I've ever done was write that book.
Yep.
So not because of the money that it's made me, because what I make $7 or something when somebody buys a book, or $2 on Kindle. So it's not about the money, but forevermore, if people say, well, what do you do? I could say, well, I'm an author, and right. So right there, the first two syllables of the word authority, author, right? So rather than coming out and saying, oh, well, I'm an authority, which is kind of weird to say, you could just say you're an author. So there you go. I wrote the book. Now I'm an author. Great.
Now, Natasha Bauman, she just asked a question saying, what was the event that prompted you to finally make the decision?
Oh, it was just getting out of my own way and kind of seeing myself, having accomplished something that I had never done before, and actually taking delight in that thought. The word diligence comes from the Latin root word decidere. I'm sorry, that's decision. Diligence, diligere, which means to take delight in. So once I got to the point where I started to delight in the idea that there could be fruit on this tree, if I just reach for it, then I reached, right? But I also had to, for myself, and this is probably the other thing, great question, Natasha, I had to get over whatever like imposter syndrome might be involved in that. I know a lot of times I've thought, well, who am I to write a book on this? I don't have a new truth for you. All this stuff has already been talked about from multiple authors for thousands of years. Go read scripture or something if you want to discover yourself. So I had to kind of overcome that so-called imposter syndrome and acknowledge that for years, people had come to me and said, John, I never quite got it before, but now that you explained it that way, now I know how to use that datum and put it into, profitable use in my life. I'm like, oh, okay, great. I'm glad that, I've been meditating on this stuff for 20 years. And now that you get to, save yourself some decades and actually just put this stuff to use instead of sitting there arguing with yourself ad infinitum, like I've done with it.
Me
right.
Too.
So it was my responsibility at that point to write the book, Natasha.
It took me a year to get this show. So I was offered the opportunity to do this about a year ago, or probably close to that. And I sat on it for a long time until finally I was the same thing. I was like, all right, let's just do it. You got to, because otherwise it's just going to sit there forever.
Right.
So
well, I'm glad you did.
Yeah, I definitely am. Me too. What do you have coming up next? What's some of the new things that you have planned?
Oh, well, I've got a course that I'm working on. I'm not going to promote it directly here. However, it has to do with personal productivity. And what I noticed was that because of everything we've just been talking about, the purpose and the application of principles into common life, I've been able to produce an exponentially higher result in the same field or areas of endeavor where other people have a much lower, or I would say a substandard result. So if I could help people be more productive and therefore more prosperous in whatever their field of endeavor is, business and other things as well, then that's what my next course is going to be about. In addition to that, my wife and I run a branding and marketing agency, and I do consulting work with a variety of people in the e-commerce space and other entrepreneurial spaces. So other iterations of, again, the same truth, okay, but other iterations of that in ways that people can apply it. And that's going to be through various courses. And of course, the mastermind group, which you're a part of. And I'm so glad and grateful to the mighty and awesome Gail, your mom, who invited you to participate with us in that, because that's a labor of love for me. And I know anything that, anytime I can stay in that conversation of success, because I need reminders all the time too, right? So as I was saying sort of jokingly before, yeah, that group is for my benefit. You just get to listen in. Okay, that's actually part of the deal too, right? Because because I happen to be the guy running his mouth most often, doesn't mean that I don't get to hear that stuff too. I'm always fascinated to hear what comes out of my mouth. I never know what it's going to be until I hear it. But it's like, oh yeah, that's pretty profound, John. Well, maybe you should do that. Oh yeah, maybe I will. Have some integrity already. So yeah, that's any other iterations or combinations of the same work that I've been doing to higher and higher levels. That's what's next.
Now, on a totally random note, because you mentioned music earlier, what kind of guitar music do you play? Is it like electric guitar, acoustic? Or
I got a few electrics. I don't know if you can see, I got one right here behind me. I got 3 more hanging on the wall. I got one in the closet. I dust them off sometimes and just to make them look pretty. And every now and then I'll touch one and make some sounds.
I got a ukulele because I got small hands.
Yeah. Okay. So no, I'm a dyed-in-the-wool metalhead. I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and yeah, it's all metal. In fact, my last band, where I wasn't a guitarist, I was vocals, was a death metal band out of New Jersey, and so real extreme music. That's my thing, and that's because I'm a Gemini, right? So here's John the philosopher, right, and getting all lofty with the wisdom of the ages, and death metal, Harley Davidsons, and shooting guns in the desert.
It's a little bit of a contrast.
Yeah, right.
Definitely. It's definitely a little. I'm the same way, man. I have such an eclectic taste in music that people are like, "Wait, you listen to that too?"
Yeah. I like anything that's done, anything that's fully done, like done to the maximum, like Beethoven or Ravel or Cannibal Corpse, right? But like all this formula music, this pop, it all sounds like everything else. That gets a mad, right? I like extreme.
Yeah. Now, in terms of an approach, like how do you apply your like what do you find is your most creative avenue in life? Like what really inspires you, like gets you going?
It's communication. It's all about communication. So in art, let's say that you can have a communication with the viewer. In music, you're communicating with the listener, right? In philosophy, you're communicating with the student, right? And for me, there's so much creativity in that. And we could say, oh, you're a wordsmith. Oh, okay, fine. But words have meanings, and a lot of times erroneous meanings. And if we can really get down to like, what does this stuff mean in my life? And if I could transfer an idea or paint a picture, if you will, where someone can take the same words that existed before me. I didn't write the dictionary, right? But they can take that and they can find new use for that in their life. For me, that's terribly creative. And it's at this point, for doing it for decades, it's effortless. I don't say that to be boastful or look at me, I'm so great with words. But it's just that is the palette upon which I paint. And
that's like me with photography. It's the same thing.
Right. That's a communication, right? And are you creating something new? Are you creating a new? Is the recipient receiving something in a different way than they have before? Yes, they are. Let's be deliberate about that, and let's put purpose into that, right? And that's what I do.
That's awesome, man. I want to thank you very much for coming on. If people want to get in touch with you, I know we've been having them pop up on the screen, but what's the best way to contact you?
JohnLavinia.com is the main hub. JL Success Mastermind, I think you mentioned earlier, for people that want to really participate in this conversation. We meet every day, multiple times a day. And then of course, just anywhere you'll find me on, Facebook or I'm not a big social media guy. We just hired some people who are more interested in that sort of thing than I am. So
eventually I will do that too.
Yeah. So yeah. Great to be here with you, Stefan. So glad that you're reaching, you're creating, and you're producing this content now for others. Thank you.
I really appreciate it, man. And just before we go, once again, thank you very much for coming on. And Virginia Nadji, I'm gonna probably mispronounce that. She said it's a group. The group rocks. We get so much out of it, and she's been a member for a year. So I started about a year ago as well, and it's made a big difference. It really has. But thank you again for coming on the show. And just wanted to mention for next week, we're going to be bringing on hopefully Mary Kate Burnell. She's a local musician. And if anybody didn't get a chance to see last week's episode, Vicki Hoffman, who's also a good friend of mine, she was on. She's a local businesswoman. Please go back and check that out. She's does a lot of really cool stuff. So like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you next week.